I'm about to do something most people would call crazy. I'm not selling my XRP, even if it shoots to new highs. Instead, I'm using a strategy the ultra wealthy have used for decades, one that lets them live off their assets tax free without ever cashing out. I stumbled upon this secret while sorting out my own crypto taxes, and it changed everything about how I handle my XRP. Let me share the story. It all started a few months ago when I was calculating how much tax I'd owe if I sold some XRP. The number almost made me fall off my chair. We're talking potentially 25 to 30% of my profit gone to taxes. No way was I giving that much to the government if I could help it. There had to be a better way, right? I remembered reading how billionaires rarely sell their stocks. They borrow against them to fund their lifestyles. That's when the light bulb went off. Could I do the same with my crypto? Could I live off my XRP's value without selling a single token? I dug deeper and found that the wealthiest crypto holders and stock investors play a completely different game. They don't panic sell at the top and they don't take profits in the way you and I might think. Instead, they leverage something often called infinite banking. In plain English, it means using your assets as collateral to borrow money rather than selling those assets for cash. Why do this? Two big reasons. First, loans aren't taxed. If you borrow money, you don't pay capital gains tax because you haven't actually sold your asset, you're just using it to get a loan. Second, by not selling, you keep the asset, your XRP, in this case, so it can continue to grow in value over time. It's like having your cake and eating it too. You get spending money now and you still hold on to your crypto for the future. Think of it like a house. If you own a home that's gone up in value, you have two options: sell it for a one-time payout and possibly pay taxes on the gain, or take out a home equity loan and get cash while still keeping the house. Rich folks almost always choose the second option with their investments. They'll borrow against a stock portfolio or real estate, enjoy the cash, and let the assets keep appreciating. In fact, Elon Musk famously used this trick. He borrowed against his Tesla stock to help fund the $44 billion purchase of Twitter instead of selling shares and triggering a massive tax bill. If it works for a multi-billionaire, it can work for mere mortals like us with crypto on a smaller scale. When I realized this, I felt like I'd unlocked a cheat code for crypto investing. Why should I rush to sell my XRP at $5 or $10 or whatever price target we dream of and immediately lose a chunk to taxes when I could hold it long term and still enjoy some of the profits now? It sounded almost too good to be true, so I had to learn exactly how to do it right. But before we dive into how to pull this off, a quick heads up. This might shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all the money you invest. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the step-by-step strategy the wealthy use and how you can use it with your XRP or other crypto starting today. So, how do you actually borrow against your crypto without selling it? It turns out there are a few different ways, each with their own pros and cons. I'm going to break down the three main approaches people use to pull off this never sell strategy. 1. Institutional crypto loans, custodial loans. This is the more traditional route, and it's now becoming available for digital assets like XRP. You go through a trusted custodial platform or crypto-friendly financial institution. They'll hold your crypto as collateral in a secure insured account, often in cold storage with a company like Anchorage or a similar custodian, and lend you cash or stable coins against it. Typically, you can borrow somewhere around 30% to 50% of the value of your crypto. This is called the loan to value ratio (LTV). For example, if you have $100,000 worth of XRP, a 40% LTV means you could borrow $40,000. The interest rates for these loans right now can range roughly from 8% up to 15% annual interest, depending on the coin and the provider. Bitcoin usually gets slightly better terms, higher LTV, lower interest because it's considered less volatile and more blue chip. XRP might get around 40 to 50% LTV with maybe approximately 10% interest. You will have to pass KYC, Know Your Customer verification, and often need to hold your crypto in an LLC or trust if you're borrowing large amounts. Basically, it's above board and regulated, which is good for safety, but adds a bit of paperwork. The big advantage of going institutional is stability. If the market dips and the value of your XRP collateral falls, a good lender will usually give you a window, say 24 hours or more, to add more collateral or repay some loan rather than instantly liquidating your position. They don't want to seize your crypto, they'd rather you keep paying interest. This human element and buffer can save you if XRP's price has a temporary crash. The downside: you're paying interest and not doing much with your XRP while it's locked up, except hoping it rises. And if XRP's price absolutely tanked well beyond expectations, you could still lose some of your collateral if you don't repay in time. But with a conservative loan, I personally would only borrow maybe 20 to 30% of my holdings value to be safe. The odds of a forced liquidation are low. Secondly, decentralized finance, DeFi, loans. This is the crypto native way to borrow against your coins, and you might have heard of platforms like Aave, Compound, or others on various blockchains. Here, there's no KYC, no middleman. You interact with a smart contract. You deposit your XRP, or more commonly wrapped XRP, or other assets like ETH, BTC, etc., since not all DeFi platforms support XRP directly yet, into the protocol, and it lets you borrow a stablecoin like USDC against it. DeFi typically requires over-collateralization. For example, a platform might require 150% collateral for a loan. That means to borrow $10,000, you'd need to lock up $15,000 worth of crypto. This is similar to the 50 to 60% LTV we discussed for institutional loans. Interest rates can vary dynamically. Sometimes they're really low, a few percent. Other times they spike if there's high demand for borrowing. It's not a fixed rate unless you use a platform or option that offers fixed terms. The big risk with DeFi loans is the automatic liquidation. If your collateral value drops too much, hits that threshold, the smart contract will automatically sell off your crypto to cover the loan. There's no grace period, no phone call, it's just instant. I've seen people get wiped out in minutes during a flash crash because a DeFi protocol liquidated their collateral when the market dipped at 3 a.m. and they were asleep. Ouch. Another risk: smart contract or platform vulnerabilities. Hacks happen. If you put your XRP into some sketchy DeFi contract and it gets hacked or drained, you could lose your funds. And unlike an institutional account, DeFi deposits typically aren't insured. On the plus side, DeFi is fast and accessible 24/7. If you only need a small loan for a short time, or you don't want to deal with paperwork and minimum requirements, DeFi can be a handy option. For example, say XRP is pumping and you think it will retrace a bit, you could quickly borrow some stable coins against a portion of your XRP, use those funds for something, and then repay a week later when you take some profits elsewhere, all without an actual bank involved. Free private placement life insurance, PPLI. In infinite banking policies, this one is like the luxury yacht of borrowing strategies, not for everyone, but I want you to know it exists. Wealthy families have used specially designed life insurance policies for generations to grow and access wealth tax free. Now, there are versions of this that can include crypto, although mostly for very high net worth individuals or accredited investors. The idea here is you set up a life insurance contract, usually offshore if it involves crypto, since US policies currently require funding with cash, that allows you to invest in various assets inside the policy, including crypto, stocks, real estate, you name it. Because it's life insurance, the gains inside the policy are tax deferred or tax free. After funding the policy over several years, often 5 to 7 years minimum of contributions, this is not an overnight thing, you build up a large cash value. You can then borrow against that cash value from the insurance company at relatively low interest rates. It's similar to a retirement account loan or home equity loan, but wrapped in an insurance tax advantage wrapper. If structured right, you could have your XRP or other assets growing inside this policy without paying capital gains tax on them, then borrow against the policy to get liquidity. Upon death, the life insurance payout can cover any outstanding loans, and the remainder goes to your heirs tax free. It's a generational wealth play. The catch? You generally need millions of dollars to make this worthwhile. The fees, complexity, and time horizon mean this isn't something the average crypto investor can do casually. We're talking usually $5 million or more in assets, working with lawyers and specialized insurance brokers. For most of us, this is overkill, but I wanted to mention it so you know the full spectrum, from quick DeFi loans to high-end insurance vehicles. For me and most people watching, the practical approaches are going to be the first two. Either go with a reputable platform that offers crypto-backed loans or use a DeFi lending protocol carefully. Personally, I prefer to work with an established custodian for large amounts of borrowing, just for the peace of mind and insurance. I sleep easier at night knowing some regulated entity is safeguarding the collateral and that I'll get a courtesy call or email if something crazy happens in the market. If I'm borrowing a smaller amount or testing things out, I might dabble in DeFi, but I treat it like walking a tightrope without a safety net. Now, you might be wondering, what's the catch? Do I just take out loans forever and never pay taxes? Well, kind of, yes, that's what some billionaires literally do until they die, at which point their estate or insurance settles it. But there are still costs and risks to manage. The main cost is the interest you pay on the loan, and the main risk is managing that loan safely. Let's talk about how to handle those. When you borrow against your XRP, you'll be paying interest on that loan each month or year. This isn't free money. Think of it like paying a mortgage on your house. The goal, however, is that XRP's appreciation outpaces your interest costs. If XRP triples in value over the next few years, which is not a guarantee, but just imagine, you'd have been much better off borrowing against it than selling it early and missing that run. Here's a simple example of the math that sold me on this strategy. Suppose you hold 100,000 XRP. Just to keep numbers round, let's say it's worth $100,000. So $1 per XRP, easy math. If you sold that, maybe you'd owe around 20% in long-term capital gains tax. More if it's short-term or if you're in a high-tax state country. That's $20,000 gone, leaving you $80,000 net, and you no longer have your XRP. So if XRP went to $5 later, you'd really kick yourself. Instead, you borrow $50,000 against the $100,000 value. That's a 50% LTV. At, say, 10% interest, that's $5,000 a year cost in interest. With the loan, you still have your 100,000 XRP sitting there. Now, if XRP goes to $5 in the future, that stash becomes $500,000. You can sell a portion of that if needed to clear your loan, or even refinance the loan to a larger one and pull out more cash while still not selling the majority of your XRP. Yes, you paid $5,000 per year to the lender, but compare $5,000 a year to the 400,000 plus dollars you gained by holding your XRP through the bull run. It's totally worth it. Even if it took, say, 3 years for XRP to hit that price, you paid maybe about $15,000 in interest over that time, which is still peanuts compared to the additional profit of holding. And remember, you got $50,000 upfront from the loan to use for your life or invest elsewhere. To me, that's a win-win as long as you manage it wisely. Refinancing is another trick. If rates get better or your collateral value jumps, you can refinance your crypto loan just like a home mortgage. I expect that as crypto matures and more big players, even banks, start offering crypto loans, interest rates will come down. They might drop from approximately 10% today to, who knows, maybe 5 to 6% in a few years as competition grows. Early adopters of this strategy, like possibly you and me, could benefit by refinancing to lower rates later on, further improving the math. Of course, to stay safe, you should keep your loan modest relative to your assets. I treat it like a margin of safety. I never want to be near that liquidation point. If I can borrow just 20 to 30% of my XRP's value, that's ideal. It would take an extremely ugly market crash for that to be in trouble, and by then I hope I'd see it coming and pay down the loan a bit or add more collateral. It's all about managing risk. One more thing the ultra wealthy do, which blew my mind, is they plan for the loan payoff in advance. Some of them take a portion of the borrowed money and invest it in income generating assets that help pay the interest. For example, they might use part of the loan to buy a rental property, dividend stocks, or yield generating crypto investments. The income or gains from those investments can then be used to cover the loan's interest payments each year. It's a strategy of making the loan self-sustaining. You're effectively arbitraging the interest example. If you borrow at 10% and you can make 15% elsewhere, with the money, your net plus 5% and your XRP is still intact and growing. Now, 15% consistent return is ambitious without high risk. So personally, I'd be more conservative, but even just putting some loan money into a safe interest-bearing account or stable coin yield of, say, 5% can offset half the interest cost. Some people even set aside, say, 1 year's worth of interest from the loan amount. Like if you borrow $100,000, you park $10,000 of it separately to cover the first year's interest in full. That way, you're not scrambling for payments and you effectively prepaid the cost out of the loan itself. It buys you time for your crypto to grow and eventually outpace that cost. Now, as I was researching all this, I also realized there are cool new ways to earn passive income in crypto that could help cover interest or just boost my overall returns. One discovery I made and have been pretty excited about is something called Unity nodes. In the midst of planning my never sell strategy, I'm always looking for ways to have money coming in while my crypto sits there. After all, if I'm going to borrow against XRP, I'd love to have some passive income streams to pay those interest bills and ideally still have profit left over. This is where Unity nodes come in a project that recently caught my attention and fits into this whole narrative of making your assets work for you. Unity nodes created by World Mobile in partnership with the Minutes Network is basically a way for everyday folks like us to participate in a decentralized network and earn crypto rewards. Think of it like running mini nodes on your spare devices, even old smartphones that contribute to a network's coverage or computing power, and in return, you earn rewards. It's not just a single crypto you earn either. You can choose to be paid in major coins. I opted to receive payouts in BTC, ETH, ADA, and XRP, some of my favorites, for the long term. Here's how I'm approaching it. I purchased a Unity node license, which is kind of like a software license that grants me node access, not a flashy NFT to flip, but a functional license. That license actually lets me run up to 200 micronodes. Now, I'm not going crazy and setting up 200 devices at once. I'm starting small with 10 phones to test the waters. If it goes well, I can scale up gradually. The idea is those phones will be running and supporting the network, and I'll get a trickle of crypto from it regularly. It's a bit like crypto mining or staking, but for a specific network service. Why are people talking about Unity nodes? Well, World Mobile, one of the founders, is known for working on decentralized internet and mobile connectivity, particularly in regions that lack good infrastructure. So these nodes help build out that coverage while rewarding node operators. It's a pretty cool intersection of telecom and blockchain tech. For me, it's another way to diversify my passive income in crypto beyond just staking or liquidity pools. I want to emphasize, I'm not hyping this as the next big thing to make anyone rich overnight. It's just something novel I'm experimenting with. As always, do your own research. I read their lead paper and played with a rewards calculator they provided before jumping in. If you're curious, I'll include a link in the description to Unity Nodes' info, light paper, etc., so you can read up on it yourself. It should not be a foreign concept to long-time viewers here, since I've mentioned Unity in past videos, but it fits perfectly with today's theme, finding ways to earn and fund your lifestyle without selling your core crypto holdings. Unity Nodes is me basically putting some idle gadgets to work to stack more crypto on the side. Every little bit helps, right? Learning about this borrow against crypto strategy didn't just stop me from selling my XRP. It made me rethink everything about how I approach crypto investing. It's not just about picking coins and waiting for the moon. It's about being prepared, managing risk, and having backup plans like an actual adult instead of a FOMO driven degen. So, I want to share a few extra steps I've taken to make sure this grand plan doesn't blow up in my face. These are things every crypto holder should consider, especially if you're in it for the long haul. Multiple exchanges, plan A, B, C. If you're going to hold long and maybe borrow against your crypto, you still might eventually need to sell a little or move funds around. The last thing you want is to have all your access dependent on a single exchange. We've all seen what happens when an exchange suddenly freezes withdrawals or goes down for maintenance at the worst possible time. I lived through the FTX fiasco and other exchange scares, and it taught me a valuable lesson. Always have a backup, in fact, have multiple backups. I made sure to sign up and complete KYC verification on several reputable exchanges. This way, if exchange A has issues or is down when I need it, I have exchange B and C ready to go. Let me give you a real example. During one of the big market moves, Binance, which a lot of people rely on, was overloaded and some users couldn't execute trades or withdrawals. Imagine that's the day you needed to access some funds, you'd be stuck. Because I had other exchange accounts ready. I won't name names here, but think of ones like Bitget, Blofin, and a couple of others. I knew I had plan B and C if needed. By the way, if you're looking for reliable exchanges, I've listed the ones I personally use on my website, linked in the description. Those are affiliate links, which means if you use them to sign up, it supports the channel at no extra cost to you. So a huge thank you if you do use them. Regardless, whether you use my links or not, get yourself set up on multiple platforms. It's just smart to have options in this space. Exchanges can and do go down sometimes. Secure your crypto, not your keys, not your coins. Borrowing against XRP is great, but notice in the institutional loan scenario, you have to deposit your crypto with a custodian. That's fine for that portion, but what about the rest of your holdings? What about other coins or the XRP you haven't put up as collateral? You don't want all your crypto sitting on exchanges or even in online wallets where it's vulnerable. I strongly recommend using a hardware wallet for any significant amount that you're holding long term. Personally, I use a ledger device to store the majority of my crypto safely offline. A hardware wallet ensures that you control your private keys, and it's one of the best protections against hacks. Now, super important, if you decide to get a hardware wallet like Ledger or Trezor or any brand, always buy it directly from the manufacturer or their official website. Don't go through third-party sellers on Amazon or eBay because there have been cases of tampered devices being sold. You want a fresh device straight from the source to be sure it hasn't been compromised. If you need a direct link to Ledger's official store, I have one on my website, also in the description for convenience. Yes, it's an affiliate link. Thank you to anyone who uses it. It helps support the channel, but more importantly, it gets you to the right place for the real product. Keep your coins safe, whether you plan to borrow against them or just hold them. Security is non-negotiable. Get educated and get connected. I'll be honest, when I first learned about all this stuff, borrowing, infinite banking, life insurance policies, etc., my head was spinning a bit. It's not the kind of thing most of us casually chat about when we first get into crypto. It made me realize how important education is in this space. That's actually one of the reasons my brother and I started our own crypto school and community. I want to make sure nobody in our community feels left in the dark on these advanced strategies. If you haven't already, consider joining our free educational Discord. The link's in the description. It's a great place to ask questions and learn from others. I hang out there regularly, and so do a lot of knowledgeable folks. So, yeah, jump in there and say hi. For a more structured learning path, check out the courses on our site cheekyschool.com. Shameless plug, but truly, we've poured a ton of our experience into courses on trading, portfolio management, risk management, all the things that help you make better decisions and avoid costly mistakes. Given the topic of today's video, you might be interested in the risk management and portfolio strategy material because doing something like borrowing against your crypto requires careful planning. As a thank you for watching this far, we have a discount code YT50OFF that gives you 50% off any course. The link and code are in the description as well. Here's my plan in one line. I'm not selling my XRP. I'm holding it long term and borrowing against it when needed. I'll manage the debt carefully, watch interest rates, and use passive income from things like Unity nodes to help cover the cost. So the golden goose keeps producing. Wealthy investors have used this approach forever, and now crypto holders can too. It lets you keep your position, reduce taxes, and avoid stressing about timing the top. It's not for everyone though. It takes discipline and some homework. If you're curious, start small or talk to a pro who actually understands crypto. For me, the math made the choice easy. I'd rather keep my XRP working than sell it and get hit with taxes. Let me know what you think. Would you borrow against your crypto, or does it feel too risky? Share your thoughts in the comments or in the Discord. If this helped, give the video a like and subscribe for more.